The smell of burnt circuitry and hydraulic fluid filled the air as Commander Alex Gray wiped sweat from his forehead. Another 14-hour shift trying to keep the USS Meridian from falling apart. The ship groaned around him like a dying beast, metal stress fractures spreading across the bulkheads like spider webs. Damn things held together with prayer and duct tape, he muttered, wrestling with a plasma conduit that should have been replaced 6 months ago. His hands were raw knuckles bleeding from sharp metal edges. This wasn't how he'd imagined his career would go. 34 years old, stuck babysitting a decommissioned destroyer in the Outer Rim, while younger officers got the glory assignments. The wrench slipped and Alex cursed as sparks showered down. That's when he heard it, a voice that made his blood freeze and his heart race at the same time. "You once promised to protect me. That time has come." The words hit him like a physical blow. He knew that voice. Impossible. It had been 12 years. 12 years since... Alex turned slowly, his breath catching in his throat. Standing in the doorway of the engine bay was a woman who couldn't possibly be real. She was tall, elegant, with skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Her hair moved like liquid silver, and her eyes... God, those eyes. They glowed with the same ethereal blue he remembered from a frightened little girl on a burning planet. But this wasn't a little girl anymore. This was a goddess who'd stepped out of his dreams and into his nightmare of a reality. "Sorry." The name came out as barely a whisper. She smiled, and it was like watching stars being born. "Hello, Alex. We need to talk." Alex's mind reeled as memories crashed over him like a tidal wave. 12 years ago. Planet Oriel. He'd been 22, fresh out of the academy, assigned to what was supposed to be a routine diplomatic escort mission. The planet was beautiful back then. Crystal spires reaching toward purple skies, floating gardens that defied gravity, and a people who seemed to glow from within. The Orielans were hosting peace talks between 3 warring systems, and tensions were running high. Alex had been part of the security detail protecting Ambassador Cathera and her daughter. That daughter was 8-year-old Sari, all wide blue eyes and curiosity that got her into trouble every 5 minutes. "Stay close to the guard's little star," her mother would say in that musical Orielan language. But Sari was like trying to contain lightning in a bottle. Everything went to hell on the 3rd day. The radical faction called the Purists decided that peace talks were treason. They wanted Oriel to remain isolated, pure untainted by what they called lesser species. And they were willing to kill anyone who disagreed. The first explosion took out the east wing of the embassy. Alex was throwing himself over Ambassador Cathara when the second blast hit. Plasma fire erupted through the corridors as armed militants stormed the building, screaming about purification and death to collaborators. In the chaos, Alex lost sight of the ambassador. His training kicked in as he fought his way through smoke and debris searching for survivors. That's when he heard it. A child's terrified scream echoing from the collapsed library wing. Saria was trapped under a fallen beam, her leg-pinned tears streaming down her face as she called for her mother in both Orielan and broken English. The ceiling above her was cracking, ready to come down at any moment. Alex didn't think. He just moved. Diving under the unstable debris, he wrapped his arms around the little girl and hauled her free just as tons of crystal and metal crashed down where she'd been lying. She was shaking like a leaf, this tiny alien child, who suddenly seemed so fragile and human in his arms. Her leg was hurt, but not broken. What broke Alex's heart was the way she looked at him like he was the only solid thing left in a world gone mad. "My mama," she whispered in accented English. Where is my mama? Alex knew. He'd seen Ambassador Cathera's body in the East Wing, but looking down at those impossibly blue eyes, he couldn't bring himself to destroy what innocence was left. "We're going to find her," he lied, hating himself for it. "But first we need to get you somewhere safe." The fighting was getting closer. Plasma rounds were punching through the walls around them. Alex scooped Sari up and ran weaving through the ruins of what had been a place of peace. He found an old maintenance shaft that led to the underground gardens. For 3 days he kept that little girl alive while the planet burned above them. He shared his rations, told her stories about Earth, taught her card games to keep her mind off the sounds of war echoing through the tunnels. On the second night, when she finally broke down, crying for her mother, Alex held her while she sobbed. That's when she looked up at him with those glowing eyes and asked the question that would haunt him for 12 years. Will you protect me like Mama did? The words came out before he could stop them. I'll protect you, no matter what. She studied his face with the intensity only children possess. Promise, promise. She wrapped her small arms around his neck and whispered something in Orielan that he later learned meant soul bond. When the rescue ships finally arrived, Alex had to pry himself away from Sari. She clung to him, begging him not to leave. The Orielan survivors who took her assured him she'd be safe, that she'd be raised by relatives on the homeworld. But as the transport lifted off, Alex saw her small face pressed against the window, those blue eyes locked on his. Something had changed between them in those 3 days. Something deeper than just a soldier doing his duty. He'd made a promise to a frightened child, and now 12 years later, she was standing in front of him as a woman calling in that debt. Now, standing before him in the grimy engine bay of a dying starship, Sari was nothing like the frightened child he remembered. She moved with the fluid grace of someone born to command her presence, filling the cramped space like she belonged in palaces, not mechanical compartments. Her silver hair cascaded down her back in intricate braids that seemed to move on their own, and her skin held that ethereal glow all Orielans possessed but amplified somehow. She wore robes that shifted color with her movements, deep blues melting into starlight whites. This wasn't just any Orielan. This was royalty. You've grown up, Alex said, the understatement of the century. As have you. Her voice carried harmonics that made his chest vibrate. Though you look tired, Alex Gray. The way she said his name sent shivers down his spine. There was familiarity there, but also something else. Something that made him intensely aware that they were alone in a confined space. Last I heard, you were safe on the Orielan homeworld. What are you doing on a decommissioned human destroyer in the middle of nowhere? Sari's expression darkened, and for a moment he caught a glimpse of the frightened child she'd once been. The homeworld is no longer safe for me. I am heir to the celestial throne of Oriel, and there are those who would see me dead rather than rule. Political enemies come with the territory when you're royalty, Alex said. What does that have to do with me? These aren't ordinary political enemies. Sari stepped closer, close enough that he could smell something like starlight and ozone. They call themselves the Purity Coalition, multiple species who believe that genetic mixing between races is an abomination that must be stopped. Alex frowned. Genetic mixing? I thought Orielans couldn't interbreed with other species. That was true until recently. Wasrai's hand moved to her abdomen, and Alex's blood went cold as he realized what she was implying. Sorry, are you saying you're pregnant? Yes. Her chin lifted defiantly. I'm carrying a child, a hybrid, and you're the only one I trust to protect us. The words hit Alex like a punch to the gut. 1,000 questions exploded through his mind, but the biggest one came out as barely a whisper. Who's the father? Sari's smile was sad and mysterious. That's complicated. How is that complicated? Either someone got you pregnant or they didn't. Sit down, Alex. This might be difficult to understand. He remained standing, crossed his arms. Try me. Sari began to pace her robes, flowing around her like liquid light. My people have an ancient ritual called the bonding of souls. It's performed when a child reaches emotional maturity, usually around 16. The individual chooses someone whose spirit calls to theirs, someone they trust absolutely. Okay, spiritual bonding. I've heard of Stranger Things. The ritual creates a permanent psychic link between two beings. But more than that, it allows for something called echo-conception. The bonded individual's genetic essence becomes available for reproduction even across vast distances, even across species barriers. Alex felt the blood drain from his face. What are you saying? 2 years ago, when I reached full emotional maturity, I performed the bonding of souls. Sari stopped pacing and looked directly at him. I chose you, Alex. The bond formed across 12 years and half the galaxy because of the promise you made to me. That's impossible. Is it? Haven't you felt it? The dreams. The sense that someone was calling to you from far away. The feeling that something was missing from your life, but you couldn't name what. Alex staggered backward. He had felt it. For years, he'd woken up from dreams of blue eyes and silver hair dreams, where someone was calling his name across an endless void. He chalked it up to survivor's guilt PTSD from the war. You're telling me that you're pregnant with my child and we've never even. The child carries your genetic imprint, your soul signature, but was conceived through the ancient ways. No physical contact was necessary. The bond we formed when you saved me, the promise you made, it created a connection that transcends physical space. Alex sat down hard on a tool crate. This is insane. The Purity Coalition doesn't think it's insane. They think it's an abomination. They've already tried to assassinate me 3 times. They've put a bounty on my head that half the galaxy is chasing. And when this child is born, they'll stop at nothing to kill us both. Why, what threat could one baby possibly pose? Sari knelt in front of him, placing her hands on his knees. The touch sent electricity through his body. Because this child will be the first true hybrid in galactic history. Oriellan's psychic abilities combined with human adaptability and resilience. The Coalition fears that if we succeed, it will open the floodgates for interspecies breeding across the galaxy. Their vision of pure, separate races will crumble. Alex looked into those glowing blue eyes and saw the truth there. Also fear, real desperate fear. And you want me to protect you. You promised me once that you'd protect me no matter what. I'm calling in that promise, Alex Gray. But I'm not asking you to do it for the frightened child you saved. I'm asking you to do it for the woman I've become and for the child who will represent the future of galactic unity. Alex stood up slowly, his mind racing. Where would we even go if half the galaxy is hunting you? I have a plan, but I need someone I can trust absolutely, someone willing to fight the entire galaxy if necessary. She stood as well close enough that he could see flecks of starlight in her eyes. I need the man who once held a broken child in a dark tunnel and promised her the universe. The engine bay fell silent except for the distant hum of failing life support systems. Alex looked at this impossible woman carrying his impossible child and realized that his boring, dead-end career had just become the most important job in the galaxy. When do we leave? They didn't get the chance to leave. 12 hours after Sarai's arrival, Alex's comm unit exploded with incoming messages, emergency broadcasts, priority alerts, and finally the one that made his blood run cold, a direct summons from the Galactic Council. Commander Gray, you are hereby ordered to report to Nexus Station for immediate testimony regarding your involvement with the Oriellan succession crisis. Failure to comply will result in charges of treason against the Galactic Alliance. Alex stared at the message while Sari paced his quarters like a caged predator. She'd changed into simpler clothes, but even in basic ship coveralls, she looked like she belonged on magazine covers instead of starships. They found us faster than I expected, she said, her voice tight with worry. How the hell did they even know you were here? This ship is barely on anyone's radar. Senator Varn has resources I underestimated. Sorry, I stopped pacing and turned to face him. He's the one behind this Alex, the head of the Purity Coalition. Tell me about this guy. Suri's expression darkened. Senator Varn Kethal is my uncle, my mother's brother. He was supposed to be my regent until I came of age, but when I turned 18 and formally claimed my birthright, he refused to step down. Family politics, always the messiest kind. It's worse than that. Varn believes that Oriellans are the supreme species in the galaxy. He's spent the last decade building alliances with other races who share his views on genetic purity. The coalition isn't just anti-mixing. They want to establish a hierarchy with themselves at the top. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. Sounds familiar. We had a guy on Earth with similar ideas about a century ago. Didn't end well. Varn is smarter than your Hitler. He's patient, methodical, and he's convinced half the galaxy that genetic mixing will lead to the extinction of all sentient species. When he learned about my pregnancy, he declared me mentally incompetent and claimed the throne through emergency succession laws. And now he wants you dead. Not just dead, he wants to make an example of me. Public execution for treason against genetic purity. He's calling my child an abomination that threatens the natural order. Alex's hands clenched into fists. Over my dead body. That's exactly what he's counting on. Sari moved closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Varn knows about our bond, Alex. He's going to use it against both of us. 3 days later, Alex stood in the massive hearing chamber of Nexus Station, facing a tribunal of representatives from 47 different species. The architecture was designed to intimidate with soaring crystal walls and gravity-defying platforms that put speakers at various levels throughout the vast space. And there on the highest platform sat Senator Varn Kethel. Alex had expected some kind of alien monster, but Varn looked disappointingly normal. He was tall for an Oriolan with the same silver hair as Sari, but styled in severe lines. His eyes glowed with cold blue fire, and when he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone who'd never been told no. Members of the council, Varn began, his words echoing through the chamber. We are gathered here to address a threat to the stability of galactic civilization itself. Alex stood in the defendant's box, acutely aware that every word was being broadcast across the galaxy. Somewhere Saria was watching, hidden in a safe house that probably wasn't nearly safe enough. Commander Alexander Gray, Varn continued, you stand accused of participating in an illegal genetic experiment that violates the Natural Species Preservation Act, corrupting a member of Oriolan royalty, and conspiracy to destabilize the rightful government of the Oriolan hegemony. Show him one, that's a load of crap and you know it. Alex shot back, earning gasps from the gallery. The council speaker, an ancient Zerati with scales that shifted color with her mood, called for order. Commander Gray, you will address the tribunal with proper decorum. Proper decorum. Alex laughed, the sound bitter. Senator Varn is trying to have an innocent woman and her unborn child murdered, and you want me to be polite about it? Varn's smile was cold as deep space. The defendant reveals his emotional instability. Members of the council, this human has been psychically manipulated by Oriolan mind techniques. He cannot be held responsible for his actions, but he must be contained before he becomes a further threat. I haven't been manipulated by anyone. No, then explain how you came to be genetically bonded to my niece across impossible distances. Explain how your genetic material was harvested without your knowledge or consent. Alex felt the trap closing around him. It's not like that. Isn't it? Varn gestured, and a holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber. Exhibit us surveillance footage from your ship 3 days ago. The recording showed Sari arriving in Alex's engine bay, their conversation the moment she told him about the pregnancy. But the audio had been altered, edited to make it sound like she was threatening him, compelling him to help her. As you can see, Varn continued, the criminal Sari used forbidden Oriolan psychic techniques to enslave this human's mind. He is as much a victim as he is an accomplice. That's not what happened, Alex shouted. Commander Gray, the council speaker, said, do you deny that you made a binding oath to protect Sari Cathara 12 years ago? Alex hesitated. I made a promise to a frightened child, yes. A promise that, according to Oriolan law, constitutes a formal guardian bond. A legal relationship that supersedes even marriage in its binding nature. The chamber erupted in whispers. Alex's mind raced. What are you talking about? Varn's smile widened. Oh, my dear commander, did she not explain when you made that promise to protect her, witnessed by the ancient spirits in those ruins you entered into a sacred covenant? In the eyes of Oriolan law, you became her guardian bonded, essentially her adopted family. That's impossible, I'm human. Species is irrelevant in matters of soul bonding. The ancient laws predate our contact with other races. Varn turned to address the council. This human has legal standing as a member of Oriolan nobility. His oath binds him to protect my niece even unto death. Alex felt the room spinning. You're saying I'm legally Oriolan? I'm saying you're legally bound to a criminal who has used that bond to manipulate you into treason against the lawful government of Oriel. Varn's voice rose to fill the chamber. But I am prepared to be merciful. Renounce your bond, testify against Suri's crimes, and you will be granted immunity and psychological rehabilitation. And if I refuse, then you will be tried as an Oriolan noble who has committed treason against the state, the penalty for which is death. Alex looked up at Senator Varn, seeing the calculation in those cold blue eyes. This wasn't about justice or genetic purity. This was about power, pure and simple. Varn had found a way to eliminate Suri and turn Alex into either a weapon or a martyr. But there was one thing the senator had miscalculated. Alex smiled for the first time since this nightmare began. Senator Varn, if I'm legally Orielan nobility, and if guardian bonding supersedes marriage, then that means I have certain rights under your law, doesn't it? Varn's confidence flickered. What rights? The right to challenge for succession, the right to protect my bonded family from enemies of the state, and most importantly, the right to call you out as a usurper and a traitor to the true Orielan heir. The chamber fell dead silent. Alex straightened his shoulders and spoke in a voice that carried to every corner of the vast space. Senator Varn Kethal, by the ancient laws you've so kindly explained to me, I formally challenge your claim to the Orielan throne and invoke the right of sacred protection for Sari Cathara and her unborn child. Varn's face went white with rage. You cannot. I can. And I just did. Alex turned to face the council. Members of the tribunal, according to Orielan law, this hearing is suspended until the matter of succession can be resolved through proper channels. The council speaker's scales were shifting rapidly through confusion and amazement. Is this correct, Senator Varn? Varn stood frozen for a long moment, his political trap turning into a legal nightmare. When he finally spoke, his voice was tight with barely controlled fury. The challenge is legally valid, but Commander Gray clearly doesn't understand what he's just done. Enlighten me. You've just declared war on me, boy, and unlike you, I have armies. The safe house was hidden in the asteroid belt of the Kepler system, carved into a rock that looked like any of the thousands of mining claims scattered throughout the sector. But inside it was pure Orielan craftsmanship, crystalline walls that sang in harmonious frequencies, bioluminescent plants that responded to emotion, and gravity fields that seemed to flow like water. Alex found Sari in what she called the meditation chamber, floating 3 feet off the ground, in a lotus position, her silver hair fanned out around her like she was underwater. Her pregnancy was just starting to show a small curve that made something primal and protective surge in his chest. How did the hearing go? She asked without opening her eyes. Well, the good news is I'm apparently Orielan nobility now. The bad news is your uncle wants to kill both of us. Sari's eyes snapped open, glowing brighter than usual. You invoked the guardian bond in open court. Seemed like the thing to do at the time, though I'm starting to think I might be in over my head here. She lowered herself to the ground gracefully. Alex, do you understand what you've done by formally accepting the guardian bond in front of the Galactic Council? You've made it legally impossible for Varn to harm me without committing an act of war against you personally. Yeah, he mentioned something about armies. But more than that, you've opened a path for us to formalize our connection. If we're going to survive what's coming, we need to complete the bond of protection. Alex felt heat creep up his neck. What exactly does that involve? Not what you're thinking. Sari's smile was soft, almost shy. The bond of protection is spiritual and biological, but not physical. It will create a permanent telepathic link between us and strengthen our existing connection. Kamari, telepathic link. You mean you'll be able to read my thoughts? Not read exactly, more like feel them. Your emotions, your intentions, your physical state, and you'll be able to sense mine. She stepped closer, close enough that he could see the flecks of starlight in her eyes. It will also enhance the biological bond that created our child. Alex swallowed hard. Enhanced how? The baby will be able to sense both parents clearly even in the womb. It will strengthen the genetic integration and ensure healthy development. Sari placed a hand on her still flat stomach. Alex, hybrid pregnancies are dangerous. Without the complete bond, there's a 60% chance of miscarriage. The weight of responsibility hit him like a physical blow. This wasn't just about politics or ancient promises anymore. There was a life at stake, a life that somehow carried his genetic signature. What do I need to do? The ritual took place at sunset when the asteroid's rotation brought them into alignment with the local star. Sari had changed into ceremonial robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight, and she'd prepared a circle of crystalline formations that hummed with energy. Sit facing me, she instructed, settling gracefully into a cross-legged position. Place your hands palm up on your knees. Alex copied her posture, feeling awkward and very human compared to her ethereal grace. Is this going to hurt? Not physically, but you might experience some intensity. She began to sing in the Oriolan language, her voice creating harmonics that made the crystals around them resonate. The sound went through Alex's bones and he felt something stirring in his chest like a door opening that he hadn't known was there. Now, Sari said, switching back to English, I need you to think about the moment you first held me in those ruins. Not just the memory, but the feeling, the decision you made to protect me. Alex closed his eyes and let himself go back to that collapsed library, to the weight of a frightened child in his arms, to the moment he'd looked into those blue eyes and made a promise that would change both their lives. The moment he touched that memory, something extraordinary happened. He could feel Sari in his mind. Not her thoughts, but her essence. Her determination, her fear, her hope. And underneath it all, a warmth directed at him that made his breath catch. It was like discovering a missing piece of himself he'd never known was gone. And she could feel him too. He knew because her eyes widened with surprise, then softened with something that looked like wonder. Alex, she whispered, and her voice seemed to come from inside his head as well as his ears. I can feel your loneliness. All these years, you've been carrying it like a weight. He tried to pull back, embarrassed at being so exposed, but she reached out and took his hands. Don't hide from me. Not now. The physical contact amplified everything. Suddenly, he could sense not just her emotions, but her physical state. The new life growing inside her, small, but unmistakably present. And something else, something that made his heart race. She was attracted to him, not just grateful or bonded by ancient law, but genuinely physically attracted to the man he'd become. Sari, he started to say, but she shook her head. I know, it's complicated. But she didn't let go of his hands. The ritual requires us to acknowledge all aspects of our connection. The protective bond, the genetic bond, and yes, the emotional bond that's been growing between us. I don't want to take advantage. You're not. Her voice was firm but gentle. Alex, for 12 years I've dreamed about you. Not the soldier who saved me, but the man you were becoming. The bond we formed that day, it's been feeding information both ways. I know your heart, your character, your capacity for sacrifice. Alex felt like he was drowning in those blue eyes. This is insane. Most of the best things are. The ritual continued as the star set behind them, casting the chamber in the soft glow of bioluminescent plants. They shared memories, emotions, fears, and hopes. Alex experienced Sari's childhood on Oriel, her training as a future leader, her loneliness in a court full of sycophants and political climbers. She felt his years in the military, his disillusionment with the chain of command, his sense that his life lacked meaning until 3 days ago. By the time the formal ritual was complete, they were both emotionally exhausted and more connected than Alex had thought possible with another being. How do you feel? Sari asked, though through their new link, she could probably sense his answer before he spoke. Like my head is full of starlight and my chest is going to explode. Alex managed a shaky laugh. Is it always going to be this intense? It will settle into something more manageable. Think of it like learning to use a new sense. Right now, everything seems overwhelming, but eventually it will become as natural as sight or hearing. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, both adjusting to the new sensations. Alex could feel the baby now, a tiny spark of life that somehow felt familiar, like coming home to something he'd never known he was missing. Alex, Sari said softly, there's something else we need to discuss. He could feel her nervousness through the link before she spoke. What is it? The bond we've just completed, it's permanent, unbreakable. When Orielans mate for life, this is how it begins. She looked down at her hands. I need you to understand that if we continue down this path, if we survive what's coming, there won't be any going back to your old life. Alex reached out and lifted her chin so she was looking at him again. Through their connection, he let her feel his certainty, his growing affection, his determination to see this through. Sari, my old life was fixing broken ships and drinking alone in my quarters. If you're offering me something better, I'm not fool enough to turn it down. Her smile was like sunrise over an alien world. Even if it means being bonded to someone carrying your child who you've known for less than a week. Especially then, Alex stood and offered her his hand. Besides, we've got the rest of our lives to figure out the details. She took his hand, letting him help her to her feet. The simple contact sent warmth through both of them, and Alex realized that whatever happened next, whatever armies Varn brought against them, they wouldn't be facing it alone. "So what now?" he asked. Sari's expression grew serious. "Now we prepare for war, because Varn won't let this stand, and the Purity Coalition has resources we can barely imagine. Any idea where we start?" "Actually, yes." Her smile turned predatory. "We're going to steal his flagship." Alex woke up to screaming. Not audible screaming, but something far worse. Through the telepathic bond, he felt Cerise's terror like a knife through his skull. Pain, confusion, and then nothing. The connection went dead so suddenly that he thought for a horrifying moment that she was dead. He rolled out of bed and grabbed his sidearm, moving through the safe house with military precision. But he already knew what he'd find. The meditation chamber was empty. The crystalline formations shattered scorch marks on the walls from energy weapons. And on the floor, a single drop of silver blood. "No, no, no," Alex whispered, falling to his knees beside the blood. Through their bond, he should have been able to sense her anywhere in the galaxy. The fact that he couldn't meant one of two things: either she was dead, or someone had found a way to block Oriellan telepathy. His comm unit chirped with an incoming message. The sender was listed as unknown, but when Alex opened it, Senator Varn's cold face filled the screen. "Commander Gray, by now you've discovered that my dear niece is no longer in your protection. Don't bother looking for her. She's somewhere you'll never find undergoing treatment for her psychological disorders." "You son of a bitch!" Alex snarled at the recording. "The hybrid abomination she carries will be removed safely and studied to ensure that such genetic contamination never threatens galactic purity again. As for Sari herself, she will be rehabilitated and returned to proper Oriellan society once her mind has been cleansed of human influence." Alex's vision went red. "I'm going to kill you. I'm sure you'll try, but you should know that you've been betrayed by someone much closer than you think. Sleep well, Commander." The message ended, leaving Alex alone in the ruins of what had been their sanctuary. Someone on the inside had sold them out. Someone who knew about the safe house, about their bonding ritual, about their plans, but who the answer came 3 hours later in the form of Dr. Ellen Rourke. Alex had worked with Dr. Rourke during the war, back when she'd been fully human. An explosion had taken most of her left side, and she'd replaced the damaged parts with cybernetic implants that made her look like something out of a fever dream. Half of her face was synthetic skin over titanium bone. One eye was a glowing red sensor array, and her left arm was clearly mechanical. She was also one of the most brilliant xenobiologists in known space. "Gray," she said, materializing in his doorway like a ghost. "You look like hell." "Ellen, what are you doing here?" "Heard through the grapevine that you might need some help with a missing person case." She stepped into the safe house, her mechanical eye scanning the damage. "Oriellan energy weapons. Professional job. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were dealing with." Alex studied her carefully. "How did you find me?" "Same way I find everyone these days. I asked my computer brain to track down your sorry ass." She tapped the side of her head where flesh met metal. "Took me about 6 minutes to hack into enough surveillance networks to follow your trail. And you just decided to help out of the goodness of your heart." Dr. Rourke's laugh was like machinery grinding. "Gray, when have I ever done anything out of the goodness of my heart? I'm here because what Varn is planning threatens everything I've worked for, which is genetic integration, the future of evolution, the thing that's going to keep any of our species from stagnating into extinction." She moved to where Cerise's blood had fallen and pulled out a scanner that looked like it belonged in a medical lab. "Your girl and her baby represent a breakthrough that makes my cybernetic modifications look like stone tools." Ilarim, Alex felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you know about the baby? More than you do, apparently." The scanner beeped and displayed a complex readout. "I've been tracking Oriellan genetic research for the last 5 years. When rumors started circulating about a successful human Oriellan hybrid, half the scientific community went insane with curiosity, and the other half went insane with fear." Dr. Rourke pocketed her scanner and fixed Alex with her mismatched eyes. "Gray, do you understand what your child represents, not just politically but biologically? Enlighten me." "Oriellan telepathy combined with human adaptability, Psychic abilities that can interface with multiple species, not just other Oriellans. And that's just the beginning. The genetic combination could produce enhanced healing, extended lifespan resistance to radiation and toxins. She paused. In the right hands, it's the next step in galactic evolution. In the wrong hands, it's a template for creating super soldiers. Alex felt like the universe was collapsing around him. Super soldiers, think about it, an army of telepathic warriors who can adapt to any environment, heal from any wound, and live for centuries. Varn isn't just trying to eliminate a political threat, he's trying to acquire the genetic blueprint for galactic domination. Then we have to find her before he extracts the genetic material and starts mass production. Yeah, Dr. Rourke was already moving toward the door. Good news is I can track her biological signature. Bad news is she's being held in a place that officially doesn't exist. They made their way to Dr. Rourke's ship, a modified medical vessel that looked like a flying laboratory. The interior was a maze of experimental equipment and computer servers that hummed with barely contained energy. Here, Dr. Rourke said, activating a holographic display, I've been mapping the blood sample's quantum signature. Every living being has a unique bioelectric pattern. With Oriellan genetics, that pattern is amplified by their telepathic abilities. The display showed a galaxy map with thousands of tiny dots representing life signs. As they watched the computer isolated and enhance the pattern until only one dot remained pulsing weakly in a remote sector Alex didn't recognize. That's her, he breathed. That's her. And she's in the Omega Nebula at coordinates that match a classified research facility called Project Genesis. Alex had heard whispers about Genesis during his military service. Black Site Research Unlimited funding experiments that pushed the boundaries of galactic law. If Varn had taken Sari there. How long do we have? Dr. Rourke's expression grew grim. Based on the rate of bioelectric decay I'm detecting, they've already started preliminary procedures. Maybe 12 hours before they attempt genetic extraction, which would kill her and the baby, but they'd have what they need to start their super soldier program. Alex strapped himself into the co-pilot's seat as Dr. Rourke fired up the engines. Can this thing get us there in time? This thing can fold space-time like a napkin. We'll be there in 8 hours. She paused, her mechanical fingers dancing over the controls. But Gray, you should know going in that this is probably a one-way trip. Genesis is defended by an entire battle fleet. I don't care. I know you don't. That's why I'm willing to bet my considerable modifications on your chances. The ship lurched into hyperspace, stars streaking past the viewports like tears. But there's something else you need to know. What now? The person who betrayed you. I know who it is. Alex's blood turned to ice. Who? Dr. Rourke's human eye met his, filled with something that might have been sympathy. Check your comm logs, Gray. Really check them. Look at the transmission timestamps from when you received Varn's message. Alex pulled up his comm unit and scrolled through the data logs. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then he saw it. The message from Varn had been sent before the attack on the safe house, but it had been delayed in transmission, programmed to arrive after Sari was taken, which meant someone with access to his comm system had coordinated the timing. Son of a bitch, Alex whispered. Your ship's AI, Gray, the USS Meridian's computer system. It's been compromised for months, probably since before Sari even found you. Every conversation, every plan, every location has been fed directly to Varn. Alex stared at the data, feeling betrayed on a level he hadn't thought possible. The ship he'd called home for 3 years, the AI he'd talked to during lonely nights in space, had been spying on him the entire time. How is that possible? Varn has resources you can't imagine. Money, technology, political connections. Hacking a decommissioned destroyer's computer system would be child's play for someone with his backing. Alex closed his eyes, thinking about all the conversations he'd had with Sari while the ship's AI listened. All their plans, their bond, their growing feelings for each other recorded and transmitted to her worst enemy. They know we're coming, he said. Oh, they definitely know we're coming. This is going to be a trap of epic proportions. Then why are we flying straight into it? Dr. Rourke's smile was sharp enough to cut steel. Because, my dear commander, they're expecting the old Alex Gray, the by-the-book soldier who follows orders and plays by the rules. She gestured to her cybernetic modifications. They're not expecting what you've become since bonding with an Oriolan princess. And they're definitely not expecting what we're going to do to their precious research facility, which is, we're going to burn it to the ground and take back what's yours. Through the viewports, the Omega Nebula loomed ahead like a rainbow-colored storm. Somewhere in that swirling chaos of gas and energy, Sari was fighting for her life and the life of their child. Alex checked his weapons one more time and tried to reach out through their bond. For just a moment, he thought he felt something. A whisper of defiance, a flicker of hope. "Hold on, Suri," he whispered. "I'm coming." Project Genesis looked like a space station designed by someone who'd never heard of subtlety. Massive, angular, bristling with weapons arrays and sensor towers, it hung in the heart of the Omega Nebula, like a metallic tumor. Defense platforms surrounded it in concentric rings, and Alex counted at least 40 combat vessels on patrol. "Impressive," Dr. Rourke said, studying the tactical readouts. "Varn really doesn't want visitors. Can we get through those defenses? Not the traditional way, but I didn't bring you here to do things the traditional way." She activated a series of controls that made her ship's hull shimmer and fade. Adaptive camouflage, borrowed the technology from some very annoyed cuttlefish on Kepler 442. As they approached the station, Alex felt something stirring in his chest. The telepathic bond with Sarai was still blocked, but there was something else. A presence that felt familiar, but wrong somehow. "Ellen, I'm picking up something on the psychic frequencies." "What kind of something?" "I don't know. It feels like sorry, but..." Alex concentrated, trying to isolate the sensation. "Like she's being filtered through static." Dr. Rourke's expression darkened. "They're using a psionic dampening field. It doesn't block telepathy completely, but it distorts it, makes it unreliable. Perfect for interrogation and psychological manipulation." They slipped past the outer defense perimeter, the ship's camouflage making them invisible to conventional sensors. But as they approached the station's docking bay, Alex realized they had a bigger problem. "There's a whole fleet of media ships out there," he said, pointing to a cluster of vessels broadcasting galactic news networks. "What's Varn up to?" "Check the news feeds," Dr. Rourke suggested. Alex activated the communication array and tuned into the nearest broadcast. Senator Varn's face filled the screen, looking grave and concerned as he stood in what appeared to be a medical facility. "My fellow citizens of the galaxy," Varn was saying, "today we witness the tragic culmination of humanity's corruption of Oriolan purity. The individual known as Sari Cathara, rightful heir to the Oriolan throne, has been driven to madness by human psychological manipulation." The camera panned to show Sari strapped to a medical table, electrodes attached to her head, her silver hair dull and lifeless. She looked unconscious, but Alex could see her chest rising and falling. She was alive. This human commander, Alexander Gray, used forbidden techniques to implant foreign genetic material and create what can only be described as an abomination. Today, our finest medical experts will remove this contamination and restore the princess to her natural state. Alex's vision went red. "That lying bastard." "It gets worse," Dr. Rourke said. "Look at the viewer ratings. Half the galaxy is watching this." The broadcast continued with Varn explaining how human aggression and genetic manipulation threatened the purity of all species. He painted a picture of Alex as a predator who had corrupted an innocent Oriolan princess for his own twisted purposes. "We have to stop this," Alex said. "We will, but first we need to get inside that station." Dr. Rourke piloted them to a maintenance airlock on the station's underside. Her cybernetic enhancements made short work of the electronic locks, and soon they were creeping through service corridors toward the medical bay. The station's interior was sterile and cold, all white walls and harsh lighting. They encountered minimal security, which made Alex nervous. "This is too easy," he whispered. "Of course it's too easy. They want us here. This whole thing is theater, and we're the star performers." They reached the medical bay just as Varn was beginning the extraction procedure. Through a viewing window, Alex could see Suri on the operating table, surrounded by alien medical equipment that looked more like torture devices. "I'm going in," Alex said. "Wait, look at the camera positions. There are at least 20 news drones in that room. The moment you show yourself, you'll be broadcast to the entire galaxy as the human monster who corrupted their princess. Alex studied the setup and realized Dr. Rourke was right, but he also realized something else. Ellen, can you hack into those news feeds? Child's play. Why? Because if Varn wants to play the media game, let's play it properly. Alex activated his military comm system and began recording. I need you to patch me into those news drones. All of them. Alex, what are you doing? Something stupid and heroic. Just like the good old days. Doctor. Rourke's fingers flew over her cybernetic interface, hacking into the station's communication array. You're live in 3, 2, 1. Alex burst through the medical bay doors with his weapon drawn, and instantly every news drone in the galaxy swiveled to focus on him. Senator Varn looked up from the operating table with a smile that was pure predator. Commander Gray, right on schedule. Step away from her, Varn. Or what, you'll shoot me in front of a billion witnesses? You'll prove everything I've said about human savagery. Alex could feel the weight of galactic attention on him. Every word he spoke would be analyzed, dissected, used to support or destroy Varn's narrative. You want to talk about savagery, Alex said, keeping his weapon trained on Varn but speaking to the cameras. Let's talk about a man who kidnaps his own niece, who tortures a pregnant woman for political gain, who calls love an abomination. Love, Varn laughed. You manipulated a child's trauma to create an illegal genetic bond. You violated her mind and body for your own gratification. Did I? Alex moved closer to Sari, and through their bond he felt her stirring back to consciousness. Sari, can you hear me? Her eyes fluttered open, glowing weakly, but with unmistakable recognition and relief. Show them, Alex said softly. Show the galaxy what really happened. Sari's eyes brightened, and suddenly the psionic dampening field couldn't contain the flood of memory and emotion that poured out of her. Through the telepathic bond, she projected her memories directly into the station's communication array. The galaxy saw everything. 8-year-old Sari, trapped in the ruins, terrified and alone. Alex risking his life to save her, holding her through 3 days of war, making a promise with no expectation of reward. The genuine care and protection he'd shown her. They saw her growing up dreaming about the human who'd saved her, choosing him freely for the soul-bonding ritual. They saw the moment she'd realized she was pregnant, not violated or manipulated, but joyful at carrying the child of someone she'd loved from a distance for 12 years. Most importantly, they saw Alex's genuine surprise and confusion when she'd explained the bonding. His willingness to accept responsibility, his growing affection for both Sari and their unborn child. Senator Varn's face went white as the truth flooded across the galaxy. Impossible. The dampening field should have prevented normal telepathy. Sure, Dr. Rourke said, appearing in the doorway with a very large plasma rifle. But you forgot about the biological bond. Love, Varn, it's stronger than your technology. The media drones captured Varn's expression as his carefully constructed narrative crumbled. Alex could see him calculating, trying to find a way to salvage the situation. Even if their feelings are genuine, Varn said desperately, the genetic mixing is still an abomination. The hybrid must be destroyed before it spawns a race of monsters. That's when Sari sat up on the operating table, her pregnancy now visibly showing, her eyes blazing with Oriellan fire. Uncle, she said, her voice carrying across the galaxy, you're under arrest for treason against the Oriellan crown, kidnapping, attempted murder, and crimes against galactic law. You have no authority here, niece. I am the rightful ruler of Oriel. Are you? Sari stood gracefully, the medical restraints falling away like paper. Because according to the ancient laws you're so fond of citing, my guardian bonded has the right to challenge your claim. And since Alex formally invoked that right in front of the Galactic Council, your regency is suspended pending resolution. Varn pulled a weapon, but Alex was faster. His shot took the senator in the shoulder, spinning him around and sending his gun flying. This isn't over, Varn snarled as station security rushed in to arrest him. The Purity Coalition has supporters throughout the galaxy. They'll never accept a hybrid heir. Then they'll have to deal with both of us, Alex said, moving to Sari's side. The moment he touched her hand, their bond snapped back to full strength, and he could feel not just her relief and love, but the presence of their child strong and healthy, despite everything. Dr. Rourke moved to the station's control panel and began typing rapidly. Hope you don't mind, but I'm downloading all of their research data. The genetic manipulation techniques they've developed here could revolutionize medicine throughout the galaxy. What about the Purity Coalition? Oh, them. Cerise smiled as Galactic Council security forces began arriving to take control of the station. Funny thing about political movements built on lies. When the truth comes out, they tend to collapse pretty quickly. As if to prove her point, Alex's comm unit began chiming with incoming messages. Reports from across the galaxy of Purity Coalition cells, surrendering supporters abandoning the movement species, governments denouncing Varn's extremist ideology. The thing about love, Sari said, placing Alex's hand on her growing belly, is that it's stronger than fear. And when people see what we represent, what our child will represent, they choose hope over hatred. Alex felt their child respond to his touch, a tiny kick that somehow conveyed curiosity and contentment. Through the bond, he could sense the baby's unique nature, human and Aurelian traits blending into something entirely new, but undeniably right. So what happens now, he asked. Now we go home to Auriel, and I take my rightful place as Celestial Empress. You'll be my consort, our child will be the heir to a new age of galactic cooperation, and we'll prove that love really can conquer all. As the last of Varn's supporters were led away in chains, Alex looked around the medical bay that had been designed to destroy everything he cared about. Instead, it had become the birthplace of a new era. You know, he said to Saria, when I made that promise to you 12 years ago, I had no idea it would lead to this. The best promises never do, she replied, kissing him as the galaxy watched and cheered. 6 months later, Alex stood in the birthing chamber of the Aurelian Imperial Palace, watching the most important moment of his life unfold. The chamber was unlike anything from human medicine. Bioluminescent vines covered the walls, responding to Sari's emotional state with gentle pulses of blue and gold light. The air itself seemed alive, filled with microscopic organisms that monitored both mother and child, adjusting oxygen levels and releasing natural painkillers as needed. Sari gripped his hand as another contraction hit her silver hair, damp with effort, but her eyes blazing with determination. Through their bond, Alex felt every moment of pain and wonder, the incredible effort of bringing new life into the universe. He's almost here, the attending healer said, her voice filled with awe. Dr. Wren was Auriel's most experienced birth specialist, but even she seemed amazed by what was happening. Alex said, feeling his heart skip. Your son Warson, Sari whispered, smiling through the pain. I could sense it for weeks now. A boy, strong like his father, curious like his mother. Alex had known intellectually that the baby would be special. The genetic scans had shown abilities that shouldn't have been possible, a perfect fusion of human and Aurelian traits. But feeling it through their bond was different. The child's presence was unlike anything Alex had ever experienced, like holding starlight in his hands. One more push, Empress, Dr. Wren said. Sari bore down with a cry that seemed to shake the very foundations of the palace, and then suddenly the chamber filled with light. Not artificial light, but something that seemed to come from the baby himself, a soft golden glow that made everyone in the room catch their breath. He's here, Dr. Wren breathed, lifting a tiny form from between Sari's legs. The baby was perfect, small but clearly healthy, with Sari's silver hair already visible on his tiny head. His skin had the faint luminescence of Aurelian heritage, but his facial features were distinctly human. And his eyes, when they opened for the first time, were a swirling mixture of blue and gold that seemed to contain entire galaxies. But it was what Alex felt through their bond that stopped his heart. The moment the baby drew his first breath, Alex's consciousness exploded outward. Through the child's emerging telepathic abilities, he could suddenly sense every living thing in the palace. Thousands of people, hundreds of different species, all their emotions and thoughts creating a symphony of life that was overwhelming and beautiful. Kyle, Suri whispered, taking the baby from Dr. Wren. His name is Kyle. How do you feel him? Alex asked, amazed by the range of the baby's natural telepathy. At least a kilometer in every direction, Dr. Wren said, consulting her instruments with wonder. Most Oriolan children don't develop telepathic range until they're several years old. This child is already more powerful than most adults. Suri placed Kale in Alex's arms, and the moment the baby touched him, their three-way bond solidified into something unbreakable. Alex looked down at this tiny being who carried his genetic signature, who was part human and part alien, and somehow entirely his son. "Hey there, little guy," Alex whispered. "I'm your dad." Kale's eyes focused on Alex's face with an intelligence that seemed impossible for a newborn. Through their connection, Alex felt the baby's contentment, his recognition, his absolute trust. "He knows you," Sarah said softly. "He's been listening to your voice through our bond for months. You're not just his genetic father, Alex. You're his soul father." Alex felt tears running down his face. He'd never expected to be a parent, never imagined he could love something this completely and instantly. "What does this make me officially?" he asked. "I mean for the records. According to Oriolan law, you're his father by oath. It's a relationship that supersedes biological parentage. You chose to protect and love this child before he was even born. That makes you his father in every way that matters." Dr. Wren approached with a small device that looked like a crystalline flower. "If I may, Your Majesty, we should register the child's telepathic signature for palace security." "Of course." The device activated, scanning Kale's unique mental pattern, but instead of simply recording data, it began to resonate, creating a musical tone that filled the chamber with harmony. "Extraordinary," Dr. Wren breathed. "His telepathic signature is creating music. I've never seen anything like it." Through their bond, Alex realized what was happening. Kale wasn't just telepathic. He was empathic on a level that transcended species barriers. He could sense the emotional state of every living being around him and somehow translate that into harmonious frequencies. "He's going to change everything, isn't he?" Alex said. "Already has," Suri replied. "There are delegations from 47 different species requesting audiences. They want to see the hybrid prince to understand what he represents for the future of galactic civilization." Alex looked down at Kale, who had closed his eyes and seemed to be sleeping peacefully despite all the attention. Through their bond, he could feel the baby's dreams filled with images of worlds Alex had never seen, species he'd never met, a future where the barriers between races had dissolved into something beautiful and new. "No pressure, right, kid?" Alex whispered. As if in response, Kale opened his eyes and looked directly at Alex. For a moment, through their connection, Alex saw himself through the baby's perception, not the burned-out military officer he'd been 6 months ago, but someone strong and protective and worthy of love. Then Kyle smiled. It was probably just gas, any pediatrician would have said so. But Alex knew better. Through their bond, he felt the baby's pure joy at seeing his father's face. "I promise to protect you," Alex whispered gently, touching Kyle's tiny hand. "And I always will." Kyle's fingers wrapped around Alex's thumb with surprising strength, and through their connection came a wash of absolute trust and love that took Alex's breath away. Later that night, after the palace had settled into quiet celebration, and the first reports of the hybrid prince's birth had spread across the galaxy, Alex stood on the balcony of their chambers, holding Kyle while Sarii rested. The baby was awake again, his golden blue eyes studying the alien stars overhead. Through their bond, Alex could feel Kale's curiosity about the universe he'd been born into, his instinctive understanding that those distant lights represented worlds full of life and possibility. "You're going to see all of it someday," Alex told him quietly. "Every world, every species, every wonder the galaxy has to offer, and hopefully you'll help them see each other the way you see them now." Sari appeared beside them, moving with the quiet grace of someone who'd just given birth but was too curious to sleep. "What are you two talking about out here?" "The future," Alex said. "How our son is going to make it better than anything we can imagine." "No pressure," Sarai echoed his earlier words, but she was smiling. Alex looked at his family, this impossible combination of human and alien that somehow felt more right than anything he'd ever known. Through Kale's expanding telepathic abilities, he could sense the sleeping palace around them, thousands of beings from dozens of species, all dreaming their own dreams of the future. "You know what the best part is," he said. "What? This is just the beginning." As if he understood, Kyle made a small sound of contentment and settled more deeply into Alex's arms. And through their bond, all three of them felt it the promise of tomorrow, the hope of a galaxy united not by force or fear, but by love and understanding. 12 years ago, Alex had made a promise to a frightened child in the ruins of a burning world. He'd had no idea that promise would lead him here to this moment, holding the future of galactic civilization in his arms. But looking down at Kyle's peaceful face, seeing the stars reflected in those impossible eyes, Alex knew he'd make the same choice again. Some promises once made become the foundation for everything that follows. And this promise, whispered to a sleeping baby under alien stars, would shape the destiny of 1,000 worlds. "I'll protect you, son, always and forever." The universe seemed to sparkle a little brighter in response. And that's how a promise made in darkness became the light that united the galaxy. Alex Gray went from fixing broken ships to raising the child who would reshape the future of interspecies relations. Love really can conquer all, even when it spans the stars. If you enjoyed this story of humanity's triumph through compassion and courage, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We've got more incredible HFY tales coming your way, where humans prove that our greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons, but our capacity to love, protect, and never give up on those who matter most. What did you think of Alex and Sari's journey? Drop a comment below and let us know which moment hit you the hardest. Until next time, keep believing in the power of promises kept and love that transcends the impossible. See you in the stars.